Okay, so Kim David is a Guyanese-American marketing leader, career coach, and artist. She helps entrepreneurs of color grow their businesses on their own terms through her firm, Freebird Society. Her mission to decentralize our workforce is informed by over 13 years of experience successfully navigating startup and corporate worlds, where she became deeply familiar with the toxic nature of mainstream business. Her motto is work, but don't forget to live. And she is passionate about helping others build businesses that allow them to do the same. So Kim, welcome to our Get Inspired session today.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm just so excited to be here with you all.
Thank you. So I would love to actually start with one thing that I just read in your bio about, the toxic world of business that you started to witness, I think, which is more like around the beginning of your career, and how that led you to start Freebird Society. And if you can kind of give us a little background on what you were doing before that.
Sure. So my business, Freebird Society, is my consulting firm. So I work with small businesses that are mainly owned by women and people of color to help them build marketing plans and execute those plans to meet their revenue goals, because marketing and business have to be deeply intertwined in order to work. And in terms of how I got there, I spent over a decade at agencies and in-house at brands, helping them develop their marketing. So I pretty much played every role that you could think of. I started out in analytics and insights. So I was getting my hands dirty with data and learning a lot about how to translate and interpret that information about how, just anyone was talking about our brands and other types of consumer behaviors, and then interpreting that to inform brands and our clients with how do we use that information to develop smarter campaigns or better serve those customers. So from insights, I moved to strategy, which is where I then got to be more client facing and actually work more in hand with the analysts to develop just like interesting creative campaigns and work with creative teams. And when I was in that role, that's when I got to just work with every brand that you could ever think of. So, throughout my entire career, I've worked with really awesome brands. And I think now I'm probably working with the coolest businesses, but, the names that everybody knows of. So when I was a strategist, I most notably got to build the in-house digital marketing department for the New York Yankees. So it was really cool. I got to have an office at Yankee Stadium. I, got to work directly with ownership and with the team to do things that they had never done before, because that business was classic. We're just going to keep doing what we've always done. And I was very much hired to be the opposite of that and use digital marketing to help them make more money than they've ever made before through digital marketing. And that for me was really like a turning point in my career. That's when sort of my eyes fully became open to the toxic nature of the business world. And, the things that I was experiencing at the Yankees were happening before at the other companies that I was at. I just wasn't really aware, and I didn't have the language to be aware of what was happening. And so the things that I'm talking about, to be really specific, are, and lots of times they're interpersonal. When I was in that role of the director of digital and social media at the Yankees, to give you some context, I was 24 years old at the time. That was my first job where I was making over 6 figures. And that was a company where there weren't many other people that looked like me in those kinds of roles, or just period, and especially in leadership roles. And so the things that I struggled with, I struggled with at previous jobs, where I felt like I was bullied in a lot of senses, where people were just, just aiming fire at me in a way where they were like, our marketing isn't doing well, or people are unhappy on social media because the team didn't perform well. But then all of a sudden that became my fault. So there were things that, just weren't really related to the business or the effectiveness of our marketing that were just coming back to me in a way that highlighted some of the issues that I struggled with. And then on top of that, a lot of these businesses that I've worked with, so not just to single out the Yankees, but I've worked with businesses like Perrier and all of the Nestle water brands here in the US, and some of their global brands in addition to Perrier. And when we talk about something like a bottled water, that was one of the clients where I really struggled with my morals and wanting to just execute really creative campaigns that made people want to buy more water. But I think working on businesses like that just made me so keenly aware that with all of the money that is not just made on selling the products, but spent on marketing these products, that, to be frank, a multi-billion dollar multinational corporation does not need to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to sell bottled water. I think we all know why that's important. Yet those companies spend that amount of money anyway and barely offset those expenses with supporting the people in which, like, they're mining that water from, or they're sourcing that water from anyway. And that, for me, that disconnect, yes, what we're talking about is a business and our corporate responsibility, but it is deeply intertwined with the marketing that they produced, because even globally, not everyone, but a lot of people are aware with the problems behind a Nestle, and the fact that even in the US, a lot of their marketing is inaccurate, especially when it comes to saying that their water is sourced from a spring, but it's not really. And the fact that consumers have the opportunity to be more aware of these things than ever before is why this becomes a marketing issue. And this is why, like, the ethical decisions that a business makes is becoming more and more important for your marketing. It's not just these separate two issues. It's up to us to push these businesses to actually make these ethical decisions and then talk about them through their marketing. And I think that's, like, one of the most exciting things about social media, and sort of like the democratization of how people can use their voice online, is that we have the ability to hold these businesses more accountable than ever. So I feel like I went off on a little soapbox tangent there, but I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, and this is great. We can, like, feel the passion in the work that you're doing. I love it. And, I love what you said about, like, how, when you were working with the New York Yankees, it's like actually doing things differently. That's what's created more success for them, right? And I think that's a really important thing to remember, is that we don't always have to be doing what we're being told we should be doing in marketing right now. Like, there's a lot of cookie cutter formulas out there that we're made to believe are the key to success or the way forward. But I think it's when we innovate that we really stand out. The world of business online has become very noisy, especially since COVID, because now everybody's online. And so I think it is the way to stand out now, is to be doing things really differently, because people are craving things different. Everyone is saturated with the old way of doing.
I mean, I think one thing that's important to be said here is, even going back to that example of the Yankees, I was hired with the intention and the charge to do things differently. But when I got there, the system that was in place didn't allow for change to happen, and for it to happen quickly, and for it to be led by someone new, and by someone that, held the kind of held the identities that I do in that system. And so I think that is analogous to doing anything different anywhere else, because we all exist in these systems of oppression, essentially. So what's important to remember is that even when we have the conviction that our way of doing something differently is going to work and is worth trying, at least, it's important to remember that we exist in those systems of oppression. And so we're always, there's not always, but it's very common to feel like you're swimming upstream. And sometimes that is a signal that we're doing things correctly. It's a signal that you're not doing things the way that the system has, allowed for everyone else to find that path. And I kind of want to share one of my principles that I've been that's just become a lot clearer to me through Freebird Society and working with the clients that I do. And it's that that we can't really expect that path to ever be a straight line. One thing that I always remember is that there are no straight lines in nature. So it's really silly to expect that the way that we're going to get from A to B in our businesses or our careers, whether that's through a marketing campaign or just the moves that we're making as thought leaders, let it be that winding path. That is the part of the experience, that's part of the journey, that's part of the fun. And it's the way nature intended.
It is. That's such a great analogy, because you're right. There is no straight lines in nature, and nature is I was reading something about this week, actually, about how nature is actually really chaotic. If you go walk into the woods or into the jungle, it's chaotic. There's stuff growing everywhere in all kinds of different directions on top of one another, but it is what makes it beautiful. It's essentially the essence of creativity, right? I'm curious about, I have a two-part question here for you. So what was your experience as a woman of color breaking into the marketing world, and especially breaking into the marketing world with this lens of wanting to do ethical marketing, wanting to make an ethical impact? How was that experience for you? Was it easy? Was it hard? What did you have to do to I feel like it was almost an experience of squeezing yourself in, sort of.
Yeah, so I think breaking into the marketing world overall, I was very opportunistic. Again, I broke in when I was just 18 years old, just starting out. And at that point in time, it was back in 2009, 2010. And this was when Twitter was just becoming a thing. For the first business that I ever worked for, it was an award ceremony that celebrated all of the cool and just interesting things that people were doing on this new thing called social media that put people all from around the world on one platform where they could talk to each other. And I remember we were going out and talking to brands like Pepsi, Carnival Cruise Line, and these major global brands that were just what is social media? Why should we care about this? They didn't even have a presence on those platforms yet. And in that moment, I really realized that I just had an opportunity as a young person and as a digital native to say that I'm an authority in this space. I know just as much about social media as any of those other people who were working at marketing agencies because it was just a brand new platform. And then I had this just luck of being born at the time that I was, where I also grew up with a computer in my home. And so that allowed me to really just get my foot in the door with marketing agencies. And then I really also early on learned the value of networking and just being able to lean on the relationships that you're building. And so from there, pretty much every single job that I'd ever had was through a relationship. That's how I got on these amazing teams. That's how I feel got noticed by agency leadership once I was in-house. And then the other thing was not just, luck is a big element of this, but it was also my ability to use my voice. Very early on, I realized that this is also just the nature of who I am. I get that nagging, burning voice that's screaming at me that I need to say something. And so throughout my career, I learned that the more that I listened to that voice, it wasn't always easy. It was always 100% of the time scary. I was always, using my voice in rooms where I was the only woman, the only person under 30, sometimes the only person under 25. And definitely the only person who, had a background like I did, working class, all of the things. And so just like having that practice of entering those rooms and using my voice, like that built courage so that eventually when I was in the room pitching the entire executive team of the New York Yankees for a campaign. So backstory, they were actually my client before they hired me. So I went in to pitch a campaign, and a few weeks later, I got a call from the CEO of our company saying that the Yankees wanted to hire me to come in-house and build the department. And just funny story with that, even then, at that agency that I was currently at the moment when we were serving the Yankees, I was outperforming any other strategists on our team. I was bringing in more new business. I was winning more pitches. I had a bigger workload because other teams were requesting to work with me. And after going to our boss, and asking for either a promotion or a raise, I was essentially scoffed at and told word for word that they couldn't give a promotion to someone who had just graduated college. Now I know that that's illegal here in the United States to discriminate against age like that. However, just a few weeks later, the New York Yankees, our clients, made a call and hired me to make me his boss. So the universe just works in really wonderful, vindicating ways. And I want to share that with you all because again, it felt like I was swimming upstream. I remember crying on my way to work, every day before I got that call from the Yankees. I was looking for new jobs. But what we have to remember is that we just have to keep trying. And especially when you hold these identities, you're like constantly told that it's your place is not here, like these spaces are not for you because no one else in power looks like us, and at least in the United States. And so yeah, for me, like it was just that constant courage to like keep showing up, keep using my voice. And then when it came to running my own business, that in itself was a tough transition. It required like deep inner work, to be completely honest, because I was going from this space where they weren't prioritizing ethical marketing. When I talk about ethical marketing, it's not just about having a message and creative work that reduces the harm that it's causing on its audience, or the people who your products impact, but it's also making sure that the way that your marketing is executed and the people that you're working with are actually treated well as well. And so I was coming from spaces that were not considering ethical marketing in that sense. And so when it came to marketing myself and talking about my point of view on what ethical marketing is and how important it is, the audience that I had from those 10 plus years in marketing was not the right audience for me. They were the people who don't want to change. They're the system and the establishment. And so I had to do the work of going out and networking again, and building out that audience of people who were already bought into the fact that ethical marketing is important and that it's important to just put and value like humanity over profits. So that took some work, and it took therapy, to be completely honest. Even, it's really hard to not take business personally, especially when I was going from that transition of working for other people to working for myself. And so, yeah, that was something that I had to learn, and it's still a learning process, and I'm still going through it. But yeah, things have become a lot clearer now.
There's so many things I want to highlight in what you just said. First, I want to highlight, just really knowing your value and trusting that passion that you have inside of you. So, you were saying like that you knew you had to get your voice out into the world. And I think like for everyone in here, like really don't underestimate that, because if that passion is in you so strongly and you feel like you have something to share, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. Yes, trusting the universe is the best, Rena. I totally agree. Like really trusting no matter where you are in the world, it's meant to come out, like it's meant to be shared. And the other thing I wanted to highlight, and we're going to dig into that in a second, because I think it's going to be really exciting, is, you were talking about when you first started in your career, like social media didn't even exist. And we had these like incredibly successful companies, right? And so if we think about, our community in Ecom Connect, there's a lot of people in developing countries where like, internet is not always available or accessible. Payment gateways are not always easy to access, and like the connection to the online world is not always as easy. And what I love about what you said is like, it's actually relationships that make an impact in your career and in your business. So it's actually like getting away from these screens, going out into the world and meeting people and making real connections and real relationships, because there are people everywhere that could open a door for you in your business. And, you know, in a lot of these Get Inspired interviews, a lot of the same theme comes back, whereas people talk about how, you know, while they were building their business, or before, the path that brought them to like launching a successful business was actually like, you know, getting jobs in like really big companies and looking for opportunities and just being really open to opportunities for learning and meeting people and creating connections. And I think that has a really huge impact. And the last thing I wanted to highlight was really about like sharing your voice and how important that is. And I want to actually use an example from Ecom Connect. In our super connectors, we have one of our super connectors, Mahesh, which I don't think he's here today. I always like to use him as an example. So Mahesh has a business in India where he essentially highlights Indian artisans that how he's literally in the waiting room. He just asked to enter. That's crazy. Talk about universe, like divine alignment. I'm just gonna wait till he comes in so I can actually share this example while he's here. Hi Mahesh, I was literally just talking about you as an example, and you asked to come in the Zoom room, so that's so funny. Okay, so I'm gonna somebody here. Bangura, can you mute yourself? Thank you. Okay. So let me just backtrack here. So you were talking about the importance of sharing your voice and getting out into the world, and how that really helped you kind of elevate in your career and in your business. And I was talking about Mahesh, who just entered, who has his business in India where he highlights Indian artisans, and that comes from a deep passion that he had to support the Indian culture. And he became a super connector with us, and he's like someone who's a perfect example that has a lot of passion in him, like just a lot of passion to bring good into the world. And he's literally like our sunshine in our super connectors group, because he's always you know, bringing some like positive thoughts, inspiring quotes, and because of that, just because he like stood up and like started to share his voice and share his passion, like it elevated him in a sense, because it's like he's taking up more space and he has more presence in the Ecom Connect community. And I think it's really important to really highlight that, because we all have something inside of us that we are dreaming of doing or inspired to do, or an impact we want to create. And the only way we can do that is by like telling the world and putting it out there. So I love that you shared that, Kim. And then I had another question for you, which I just lost. Oh,
thank you so much, Jenny. Thanks for your kind words.
You're welcome.
Motivating. Yeah, your words are very motivating.
Oh, thank you. It's so funny because I was just like, oh, I want to share a story about Maheshwar, but he's not here. And then you came into the meeting room, and I was like, oh, divine alignment.
I apologize for the late.
No problem, no problem. So let's talk about, and this is where I kind of feel like we're going into a hybrid of Get Inspired and Ask the Expert, but I would love for you to share your thoughts on ethical marketing without social media, because we've talked about this together, and I think it'll tie back to what we were saying is like, you don't need to always be connected on social media in order to be successful. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I work with a lot of clients on how to build marketing campaigns without social media, especially for solopreneurs, people who are running a one-person show when it comes to their business. It's really hard to do all the CEO business owner things and then also run all of your marketing through social media. And we've been kind of like led to believe that it's possible that because we as humans can effectively use social media just to stay in touch with our own networks, that you can just as effectively use it to grow your own business. But what's required to use social media to grow a business is at least 3 people's jobs, to be completely honest. And this idea, it's just like the nature of digital marketing has just really spun out of control over the past 20 years. And with the prevalence of social media, like a lot of what's required of you to be successful on social media as a business is very deeply intertwined into it's very deeply intertwined in how like capitalism shows up in business and in marketing. So the nature of social media requires you to be always on, in a sense that you should be showing up every day, oftentimes multiple times a day. The way that those platforms are built is that after you post, within the first 30 minutes to an hour is the best time to boost your engagement. So, after you post, you should be like engaging with the comments or liking or just being active on the platform. And that would bring more people to your channel or to your content. There's also the idea that in order to grow on social media, that idea of relational marketing and making sure that you're interconnected with people. It's also true on social media, but in order to really make it work, you need to be connecting with at least like 5 to 10 people a day to really effectively grow your business and just amplify using a platform like social media, because you're really casting a wide net. And that's not necessary. There have just been so many ways to successfully grow a business before social media even came about. And even with the prevalence of social media, there are lots of businesses that are doing well by not prioritizing those channels. However, what they are all doing, whether you're growing your business on social media or not, is that you are prioritizing building a relationship with your audience. So you are getting to know the people that you are connecting with, and you're getting to know like what do they want? What do they need? What problems are they experiencing that you can actually help solve? And then that's how you show up, by solving these problems that they are showing you that they have. And I guess just like one analogy that's becoming a lot clearer to me about the differences between social media marketing and the rest, essentially, is I like to think of social media marketing as like fast food, or even any kind of takeout. So whether you cook the food yourself or whether somebody else prepares it, you're going to get fed at the end of the day. But there are different pros and cons into how that meal affects your body. So you're paying more for convenience. You're using more of your resources for that convenience. You might also have side effects from that food being more processed or having more fats or just things that you can't control. So think of that like the algorithm. And then how the effects of like how that impacts you and your business depends on how frequently you show up on social media, or that you're ordering that takeout, versus where you are just preparing the food yourself. You are more conscious of all of the ingredients that goes in, all of the steps that you need to take in order to get to that final product, so that when you do have that marketing output or that brand experience, you have a better understanding of all that went into it, so that you can course correct moving forward. Because the other thing that's important to remember about marketing, ethical or not, is that it's all just a series of experiments. Campaigns are just experiments. It's just trying one thing and seeing if it works, and then using that to inform what you do next time, and then doing that all over again. So yeah, I think that's generally like the differences between ethical marketing and traditional marketing. And then like how to show up in social media versus not.
It's funny because, as you were talking, I was just realizing how, like, when I hear marketing now, like the only thing I think about is social media, because it has become the beast that has taken over everything. And we forget about how there are so many other ways in which we can connect with our audience, at a deeper level, because it's true. It almost feels like this impossible race is social media. And I know for me in my business, when I sit down and like do some work for social media, which is creating the content, figuring out when it goes out, programming it to go out, it takes up so much time in my week. And all of that time is when I'm not really connecting on a deeper level with my clients or my community. It's that time that I'm not sitting down writing my book that's waiting to be finished and go out into the world. It's time that I'm not using for my creativity. And so, and social media is just changing. Like, it feels like it's changing every second of every day. And so as soon as we start to do one thing, there's a new thing that's coming up. And so I do think that it really, it can really distract us, and it can give us this like FOMO feeling, this fear of missing out on something, when really, if we just slow down and do things more intentionally, I think it can have a much bigger impact in our business. So I love that you talk about that. And I think it's just like a good moment to remember that, like, oh yeah, there's so many other things we can do when it comes to marketing. It's not just social media.
A million other ways. And to that point, you know, I kind of also want to share, like I mentioned before, how capitalism relates to the nature of social media, but it's also important to just mention that capitalism and white supremacy here are deeply intertwined. So when I talk about the power of businesses to be able to, you know, change the world, to actually impact these social, economic, and environmental issues that we're all facing, business has the power to change this, right? Like, we know who's contributing to the pollution the most. We know who has the power to influence government with their dollars. But that's not happening, right? And so when we look at what's really driving a lot of these businesses, small business owners, it's this desire to create a business that aligns with their values and ultimately make an impact on a lot of these big, broad issues. And we haven't seen these major companies do that in the past. And that's because they are doing business to make a profit, and that is it, and not necessarily you know, value the human lives that they engage with. And so when you look at the fact that social media requires you to spend all that time and energy just creating the things and not doing the work of having your business really reach more people and impact more people, that is the distraction that white supremacy like designed for us. And so it's really important to, anytime that we find ourselves engaging with these activities where we just feel like we are in quicksand and not doing the work that we got in business to do, that's when it's time to reassess your marketing activities and how you're spending that energy. And I'm telling you, you know, I'm the one with the expertise, and it's not easy to say, okay, we're not going to be on social media. You know, everyone looks at you like you're insane.
Right.
And at the end of the day, I just have to remember that marketing period is just about building relationships. And so you can do that without feeling like you're on this incessant hamster wheel.
Yes, I love that. And again, that just amplifies what we said at the beginning, is like marketing and business building is really just about building relationships. So no matter where you are in the world, you know, you can go out and build these really deep, meaningful relationships with people that could align you with something that will be helpful in the growth of your business. We're going to open up the Zoom room in about 5 minutes or so for like questions, so we can do some like Q&A with Kim. But there is a question that popped into the chat, so I'm just going to ask it now. I think it's a good time. So Nampilo said, how can one monetize their passion? I'm passionate about empowering people, but qualified as an accountant. That's such a good question.
Yeah, so this is like the exciting time in your business where you get to come up with your first offer. So with this, I would start narrowing down who is it that you want to serve. So you're passionate about empowering people, but I would get a little bit more specific. You know, as an accountant, I'm sure you probably see that, and I think that this is true regardless of country, that there are certain people that that type of education about financial literacy and how to use money and how to grow money is not accessible to everyone. And so maybe as an accountant, you want to focus on serving those marginalized or traditionally underserved audiences. And that's like a really like niche way to focus on empowerment in the accounting space. So maybe you're working with business owners who are women or just, yeah, people who are traditionally marginalized in your communities. And then in terms of figuring out like, how do you monetize that passion? It's about coming up with what do you enjoy doing the most? Like you really have to ask yourself, what is it that you want to be spending your time doing? And then backtrack from there. So if it's that you like helping people, you know, get clear on all of their books. So maybe, you know, when you first start working with someone, there's this process of like reconciliation where you go over all of their books and kind of like make it all neat and tidy and make sense of, you know, all of those numbers. Maybe that's the offer where you offer like a 60 to 90-minute session where you help them reconcile their books so that they can be ready for, you know, tax season or whatever that might be. Yeah. So does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much. It's so clear. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And you know what, let's just continue in the Q&A. So if you have a question, you can raise your hand and we'll get to you in a second. And I want to share an example for Nompulo before we move to Rena. I see her hand is up also. You know, just so I love everything you just said, Kim. I think it's so, so powerful. And like, you might be qualified as an accountant and you might not want to like be an actual accountant right now, you know? So I'm going to use my journey as an example. I became an entrepreneur first as a yoga therapist, as a yoga teacher and yoga therapist. And then I realized that my passion was business building. My passion was entrepreneurship. And so I'd be on my yoga mat and thinking about like, I can't wait to get on my computer to like build my business and do the thing and reach out to my clients, you know? And so what I ended up doing is I ended up, you know, transitioning or like, you know, monetizing my passion, which is business building and supporting entrepreneurs. And I brought with me the yoga therapy. And so today in my work, I actually use both all the time. So when I'm working with my clients, you know, we're talking about their nervous system and we're talking about their stress and their anxiety and their overwhelm and helping them kind of manage all of that so they can show up better in their business. So sometimes we forget that like we can still use this thing we're qualified as in a new in a new vehicle or in a new format to be doing something that is more aligned with our passion. So I love what you just shared, Kim. That's really, really great.
I actually just want to echo that really quickly. That idea of bringing together two different like spaces or parts of your life, whether that's two professions or just like being a parent or a caretaker and a profession or a student, that's where like the magic happens. There's so much creativity in that space. Like we often think that when we're pivoting from, you know, like maybe you took time off to take care of your kids, or maybe you're pivoting because you studied one thing and you realize that's not what you want to be doing in your career. We tend to think of those things as shortcomings, and they're like the complete opposite. Like that is where the magic, yeah, really stems from. So I just want to echo that. Great point.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. Rena, go ahead.
Hi, I
Hi.
have been in the textile industry for more than 30 years. So I'm from the other part of the spectrum and just started a brand. I was a consultant for a long time, and then I got into entrepreneurship last year and started my own brand called Repeat, which makes natural dyes. So I am on loggerheads with my digital marketing team all the time because they would insist that I should give discounts, I should hike up the price and give discounts. So I don't understand, what is it about e-commerce? Why can't they be honest? And why do you have to do this thing of hiking the price and then giving discounts and then only you can sell? What is the logic behind it? Is it
so
worldwide or is it only in India?
No, it is not only in India. This is definitely worldwide. I'm so glad that you're asking this question. this is the perfect example of when we talk about traditional marketing and sleazy marketing versus ethical. So the idea that you need to create scarcity, which is what those discounts are doing, or like create just more incentives for people to buy beyond the value of the product that you already created. That's this idea of, scarcity marketing, that what you created is not enough, and that you need to give even more to your audience to get them to buy what it is that you're selling. However, that there's different kinds of businesses, right? And all of the way that you execute your marketing is going to be based on your brand, which is essentially like the essence of how you show up. And so if you have a premium brand, think of that as luxury brands, or even an Apple, where it's luxury to some, but it's still pretty accessible. These are brands that are never discounted. They just tell you what they're about, and expect you to buy them because that's the value. If you don't want it, you can buy an Android phone or go anywhere else. It's that mindset that a brand needs to take in order to execute that marketing where you're not running those constant sales. But in order to do that effectively, you need to build relationships with people so that they understand that your brand is premium. So I would focus more on brand marketing, really thinking about what is it that your brand stands for and trying to execute marketing that communicates that. So maybe that's partnerships where you're showing up with people who care about the fact that you're using natural dyes versus artificial dyes. And so that's kind of what I would suggest. And then in terms of amplifying that through e-marketing, I would also focus on aligning yourself with digital brands that care about that as well. So maybe you reach out to publications or online communities that are focused on environmental brands, and you can show up in their emails for promotion or something like that. So it's more about telling the right people about your business and and why your business is premium, rather than trying to just throw all of these sales at anyone just so that they would maybe buy your products. Does that make sense?
So even if it's slow, you think it will pick up if you stick to what you're aligning with?
Yeah, so it's all about strategy. Like at the end of the day, like what your team is currently doing, that is a strategy, right? To focus on
Is it
sales.
compulsory to have a brick and mortar? Is it compulsory to have for this kind of, like, is it not only you can do otherwise also?
Yeah, I think you can do it for e-commerce, but again, it's just about the kinds of relationships that you're building. So really focusing on like who you're attracting and having a very clear idea that the people that you're offering those sales to understand the value of the product that you're offering.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, I think what I've noticed is like anything that's fast results in business is not sustainable. So it's fast, we get a quick turnaround, but it's not something that's sustainable. So I definitely think that like the slower is the more wise way to go. And I would also add, Rena, that like you seem to have really clear values of like what you feel is important and the kind of impact you want to make and how you want to show up for your people. And just a reminder that like you're the boss of your business, which is like the wonderful thing, right, about being business owners. And so I think it's really important. I think sometimes what happens when we hire people like marketing firms and all that stuff, we disempower ourselves by saying they're the experts, so we're going to let them make all of the decisions, when really we have to make sure, like Kim was saying, that it is aligned with our values, it is aligned with our brand and how we want to show up in the world. And when something doesn't feel good to you, to be able to say it and lead the way towards a different way forward, I think is really important. Yeah. Oh, and also, Rena, I'm popping something in the chat here. I think this session will be really inspiring for you. I'm not sure if you saw the interview we did. It was last year, I think, with Fool.
I no.
Okay.
I was a part of She Trades last year.
Okay.
So some classes I attended there, but I don't remember this.
So this event was with Fool. It's a company in India where they essentially they go around India and they pick up the flowers that are used in like ceremonies and stuff.
Oh,
that
yes, yes, I know them. They are the temple. Yes, yes, I know about them.
Yeah, and you know, we talked a lot about their marketing and that, and they have very similar values to you. So I
Yes.
think you'll love.
Adiv Pure Nature or something. The brand is called Adiv Pure Nature.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly, but
It is full.
Fool, yes, it's Fool, the name.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. So the link is in the chat. I think it'll really inspire you as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And can I just offer one other piece, Rima, that kind of makes me think of is so also, I think when we run businesses that are very value driven, again, this is capitalism and white supremacy rearing its head. We are led to believe that and making a lot of money can't coexist, that you can't be doing good for yourself, your community, and the environment and make a lot of money. And that's not true. And so I also want to encourage you that so what you are selling, at least right now, it sounds premium. And there are ways that you could also package those products beyond just selling one at a time that aligns with that premium positioning. So maybe you bundle packages for higher price points or things like that, or you bundle those products with similar brands as well. But I just want to throw that out there, that just because you're value driven doesn't also, in terms of how you sell beyond just like the marketing sales tactics, how you position like your actual products can also make a difference in that way too.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Rena, for your question. Does anyone else have any other questions about our conversation or for Kim about your marketing? Feel free to either pop it in the chat or yes, Mahesh, go ahead.
You can go ahead.
Hi,
Mahesh.
Kim. Hi, Kim. Greetings for the day and namaste to all. Myself, Maheshwar. I'm a managing director for Mahini Export and also like a super connector for Ecom Connect. So I'm helping companies to create handmade products in categories like home decor, furniture, fashion, and kitchenware. And we have associated with more than 10,000 artisans across India. My question is to you that recently we had a client from United States of America. We have started our business in 2020, just before the COVID pandemic. At this moment, we are dealing with small clients like SME, you can say. The challenge I'm facing is the logistic part. See, the volume is very low. But thing is that we are sending these goods to the states. The price of logistic is going high. Due to that, our clients are facing problem. Is there any solution? Because if we send this through sea, sorry, we can't send this to sea because the volume is very less. By air, it would be the hike, the price of the courier is very high. So that is a problem we are facing. We are also planning to do drop shipping, but that doesn't make sense because one piece, because our clients are reselling it in the States. So that is a challenge I'm facing at this moment. Is there any solution where we can work out?
And so the types of crafts that you're talking about, because you mentioned drop shipping, so it's a combination of like art that's printed on materials, but then also like handmade items, right? So
Yes.
it sounds like it sounds like this is mostly a business operations problem, but there are some things that I think marketing can help with. So it sounds like one option is that you try to increase your volume by a lot that's being shipped to the States, right? So that would be trying to go after more buyers or trying to get buyers to
That's
increase.
true, but
This is
initially,
handmade and handicraft. Handmade,
yes,
handicraft.
as an
it takes
initial
time.
point of connect, it's very difficult to sell volumes. Why? Because
Gotcha.
if you go with volumes, a lot of big brands are there, like Home Depot, Wafer. Their brands are there. Amazon. So many brands are there. They're helping out companies like Alibaba is there. So it's very difficult to compete with these big brands. So we are targeting only small companies like SMEs.
Gotcha.
That
Okay.
is the
I
issue.
think I would love to connect with you one-on-one outside of this. I have some ideas of businesses that you could connect with. But I think it would just require just a little bit more research to find like those mid-tier brands. So the businesses that do have like more of a brick and mortar presence in the Americas, and then also do some online, but are mostly brick and mortar. And I'm thinking of stores that like sell home good items and things like that, like decor and stuff, but that are smaller than like the Wayfairs and the, Alibabas. So yeah, that's definitely one thing that I want to share. But then the other approach that I would take is through an influencer marketing strategy. So working with people who care about artisans and care about protecting that work. Maybe they have origins in India or they're based there, who can advocate for why working with a provider like you is really important versus going to someone like an Alibaba to source those kinds of items. There are a lot more smaller brands that are popping up around every category essentially, but you're seeing I think especially brands in the self-care space where they're using like traditional Ayurveda methods, but then creating these like direct-to-consumer products. You could potentially align with those brands to create special edition packages. For example, like the holidays are coming up where maybe you try to get your products as a part of gift sets, for example. And that's just like coming up with different ways to partner with those smaller brands so that potentially you're getting them to buy more when they do make those orders. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
Can I share
Thanks so
what I
much.
do here?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
please.
I also supply small stuff to US. So we send it to a fulfillment center there. So from
Okay.
there, it becomes much cheaper. You just send once the whole thing, and from there it is distributed. So then it becomes the price comes down.
For that sake, we need to purchase a space at fulfillment center, right?
Yeah, so our buyer there helps us with that. We tell them to have a
Okay.
fulfillment center there. So then from there it goes.
Thanks for the insight. Very nice.
Yeah,
And-
I really love what you said, Kim, for Mahesh about like the influencer marketing potentially, like really connecting with, companies or communities that really value the Indian culture and the Indian artisans. I really love that because Mahesh says there's like so much passion behind his business. And yeah, I think that's what makes him stand out as well.
Yeah, that's my favorite part of just my approach of not using social media. Like, I'm not saying that it's not a good way to market, right? Like, it's definitely successful for some people. However, it doesn't work for me. And I definitely help my clients still build campaigns using social media. But one way that is the easiest way to skirt around it, where you don't have to show up on social media, is tapping into those influencers. So leverage people who love those platforms and who like are performing really well on those platforms, and tap into those audiences that already exist instead of you needing to go and create your own audiences on every single platform.
Yeah. I definitely recommend for you guys to connect after Mahesh. But yeah, so many.
Certainly, I'll do that.
Like, it's interesting how we don't think about all of these other pathways because we're just so focused on the social media all the time. These are really incredible ideas. I love it. Are there any other questions before we let Kim go, which I know none of us want to because this is such a super inspiring conversation.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's so fun. I did see that someone had their hand up. Tuli,
Yes,
do you
it was me. It was me. Yes.
yeah.
Hi. Thank you very much for sharing this knowledge, Kim. And I think it's also valuable because oh sorry, I'm Tuli. I'm based in Cape Town, South Africa. I run a platform in the beauty industry. So we started with offering services, and because of the cost of social media marketing in selling a platform, that is something that is people are not familiar with booking services and having the services at home. I then decided to also introduce the products, but mainly for export purposes. And I think the reason I lowered my hand is because you partly answered me when you spoke about the influencer marketing, because what I'm struggling with now is connecting with the brands that are either doing manufacturing or the distribution of essential oils in the EU, and how to actually get to them and then promote the products on their side. And I think I like the idea of getting the people that will probably then be doing influencer marketing and be able to connect with us. So I'm not sure whether my thinking is right or not.
Yeah, I would definitely encourage you to do that. And just remember, and this is kind of for everyone, as you go out and engage in those relationships, even these people who have amazing businesses and have built incredible platforms, like they're just human. So your goal is really just getting them to care about and make a connection about the value-based business that you're building, and why that's important to you and why it's important to amplify that business. So yeah, I would definitely encourage you to go reach out to either those businesses or individuals. But yeah, just remember that like just keep trying. Like you want to get a big list of rejections, which I'm sure you won't, but just keep putting yourself out there, so that you're giving yourself as many opportunities as possible to be told no. Like that's one of the most helpful things that I was told going out in business, and it's worked really well for me.
The only problem or the challenge is that for us as small businesses to gain access to those type of companies, it's like you're also going back to social media, because you have to go and get wherever way you source them, because an easier way to source them will then be to source them from companies that are doing social media. And do you have any maybe advice or recommendation on how to reach out to them, please?
Yeah. So when you identify the companies that you want to engage with, it helps to send something on social media to let them know that that's how you found them. But I still think email reigns the day when it comes to those types of professional communications. Most people, it's just like, even if you're showing up in their DM, things don't get registered as needing to show up on the to-do list until they're in someone's inbox. So the way that I like to go about that is, when you've identified the individual, which social media is really effective, but especially LinkedIn is the place where a lot of those contacts are going to be. And sometimes on LinkedIn, their email address is public information, but the other way that you go about finding that is just Googling the company and trying to find an email address for anyone at that company, and then putting that person's name in there. And then, if you try that email and it has a deliverability issue and gets sent back, try another version of that same name in that company's email. But yeah, that's the way that I tend to go about them. Yeah, try to focus on emails, and then maybe LinkedIn messaging and DMs as second priority.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, I want to, Bangor just said, like, one of the biggest challenges is how to connect to buyers of products. I'm going to pop a link in here. This was from one of our last sessions, Bangor. I think it was our coffee chat. This is someone in the Ecom Connect community. I can't remember who it is, but their company connects buyers and suppliers. So that might be a good resource. I just popped that in the chat as well. Well, actually, it might be helpful for several people. Well, we're at the hour, so we will let Kim go back to her day. Thank you everyone for showing up and just like really engaging in this conversation. It was so nice to, really helps to have questions because it allows us to dig a little bit deeper into the topic with like specific scenarios. And Kim, thank you so much for just spending time with us today and sharing your story and your knowledge. It was super helpful and super inspiring. And if people want to kind of like follow your work or just continue to get inspired by what you do, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so I am not on social media. Surprise, surprise. I have a presence there, but not very active. So you can go to my website, freebirdsociety.com. I'll just type that in the chat.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And there you can sign up for emails for me. So if you get that freebie at the top of the website, I'll get your email address and I'll be in touch with just marketing insights and trend reports. And then if you're interested in working with me, I would love to extend to all of you a discount code. So if you use the code LIVE, LIVE, on any of my offers, you'll get 20% off. But even beyond that, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Just search for me at Kim David. And yeah, I just love to stay in touch. It sounds like you all have really awesome businesses, and I'd love to just either be able to support you, amplify your businesses, or just be in community with you. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Kim. And I'm just going to pop the link for those of you who are not yet members of Ecom Connect. I just put the link of the website below because the recording of the session will be in the event description, and we're going to share it on the live feed in a couple of days. So if ever you want to go back and listen again, and yeah, and just to join our other monthly events, we've got so much going on in Ecom Connect all the time. We would love to have you. It's free to join Ecom Connect. Thanks again, Kim. This was so great. And I look forward to signing up to your newsletter also.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Have a really good day, everyone.
You and
Bye-bye.
me, Kim. Thank you so much.